I was having y'all, your boy Rico from Street Scores, and I'm coming today with a big time injury update for this Washington Commanders versus Tennessee Titans game coming this Sunday at 1 p.m. Of course, I will be live streaming during that game, breaking down everything that's going down live, play by play, all of that. So make sure y'all pull up for that. But for today, a lot of bad news, but some good news. Most importantly, Jahan Dotson, our starting wide receiver, one of our top three, and our starting right tackle Samuel Cosmi are already confirmed to be out, along with a couple of other players that we're going to talk about. But also, rookie 5th round tight end Cole Turner will make his debut this week as well. And then we got to talk about everybody else as far as injury updates go. We're going to talk about the Commander side, and we're going to talk about the Titans side, because the Titans are also going through it as far as injuries go. They're missing a lot of players in this upcoming game. So this should be a really weird game where it can honestly go either way, because both of us are missing key players for sure, including Treylon Burks on the side of the Tennessee Titans. And even though there was more hype for Treylon Burks to be a better receiver, honestly, us losing Jahan Dotson hurts us way more than the Tennessee Titans losing Treylon Burks, because Treylon Burks has not done anything anywhere near as good as what Jahan Dotson has done for us. But we're going to dive into all of that. But before we do, make sure you subscribe to the channel, hit the bell next to the subscription button so you get a notification immediately. And every time I release an informative and opinionated video just like this one, make sure you pull up every Sunday for the During the Game live stream, like I already briefly mentioned, where I break down everything that's going on during the game live, of course. And then, of course, make sure you pull up for the post-game live stream as well, either immediately after the game or an hour after the game, or maybe the next day as in Monday. Either way, just be on the lookout for the post-game live stream where y'all call in and you voice your opinions. And without further ado, let's get it. All right, so let's start with the negatives for the Washington Commanders. Let's go ahead and talk about who's out. Well, first of all, you have safety Percy Butler. He's out. He's basically been the 4th safety on the team, and with him out, things get a little interesting. Of course, that means Derek Forrest probably plays more, and with Cameron Curl and Bobby McCain healthy, you know, this doesn't really affect too much, but that means Jeremy Reaves probably will play a little bit, even though Percy Butler plays quite a bit of slot, but Jeremy Reaves is more like a backup free safety. So this is really interesting. I'm excited to see who they may try to throw out there in place of maybe Tariq Castro Fields will get more playing time rather than a Jeremy Reaves, because again, Percy Butler's been stepping up and being like a nickelback. He's been pretty much everywhere and used in several different ways. So we'll see. Maybe it's a combination of Jeremy Reaves and Tariq Castro Fields that end up playing, but either way, I don't think there's going to be any roster moves that are made to replace Percy Butler. Plus, it's not like a long-term injury as it seems. He's just dealing with a quad injury, and granted, he didn't practice one day this entire week, but I haven't heard anything about him possibly being out long-term. Also, linebacker Milo Eifler, who's really just a special teams guy, so that's not a huge impact either, but he still does matter, especially with David Mayo questionable, which we'll talk about a little later when we get to the questionable parts. That means that somebody like a Khaleke Hudson probably gets elevated from the practice squad and will contribute on special teams like Milo Eifler did, because I don't think he's played a single snap on defense yet, so it's not that huge of an impact, but it does matter. Special teams does in fact matter. We saw that the first couple of weeks when our special teams was terrible. And then wide receiver Jahan Dotson, man, this is the biggest one in my opinion. He suffered a hamstring injury last week in that Dallas Cowboys loss, and Rivera already said a few days ago that he's probably going to miss a week or two, but that's really weird because this is the first week against the Tennessee Titans, and then the second week is a short week against the Chicago Bears Thursday night. That's not even a full week. So I don't really expect to see him till Green Bay, which is probably when we'll see maybe even like a Chase Young maybe by then or something like that. So this is going to get really interesting. And without Jahan Dotson, this offense is not the same. He's been our most consistent receiver. He's been the guy that apparently Carson Wentz is the most comfortable throwing to, because he's made these crazy, really accurate throws that keeps giving you hope about Carson Wentz turning it around and being a good quarterback for us. A lot of his best throws this season have been to Jahan Dotson, where it's like in the perfect spot, rainbow right in the bread breadbasket, on time, super improbable throw. According to next gen stats, like 2 of the best throws so far from any quarterback this NFL season, and they've all been to Jahan Dotson. It just seems like Carson Wentz is on his A game when he's targeting Jahan Dotson at times, because he's also dramatically underthrown him a couple of times, and Jahan Dotson had to come back and get it. But that just shows you how much Jahan Dotson affects this offense. Even when Carson Wentz is inaccurate, Jahan Dotson's able to go up and get it, or even come back and dive under to get it. And so it's going to be a pretty big loss for us. I mean, I think it's going to show. Our offense has already been really bad, and granted, this Tennessee Titans defense, which I'm going to talk about in my preview video, so stay tuned for that a little bit later. A couple of hours from now, I'm going to drop a video previewing what's going on with our matchups versus the Titans, like I always do. Every week I do a preview video, 5 matchups, 3 X factors, and of course my score prediction as well. And I'm going to talk about this in that video. But this Tennessee Titans team is a pretty good matchup for us. Like, if we needed a bounce back win, granted, I feel like they're better top to bottom, ignoring injuries, than a couple of teams we've already lost to. But this is also a good matchup for us because our offensive line has been like the worst part of our team, and their defensive line is not necessarily bad, but it's one of the least scary out of anybody we've played so far this season. But it still really sucks that we will not have Jahan Dotson for at least this week. So now it's going to be up to Curtis Samuel, Terry McLaurin, and then all of these other guys, these tight ends, these running backs, to make up for the impact in the loss of Jahan Dotson. I think it's going to be pretty big. I think it's going to be bigger than what people think. I mean, he has 4 touchdowns in 4 games right now. I mean, it's literally him and Stefon Diggs leading the NFL in touchdowns right now out of the entire NFL. They're the only 2 guys with 4 literally in the entire NFL, Jahan Dotson. And that's what also sucks too, because now that he's hurt, he's clearly leading the Offensive Rookie of the Year award right now. I would think, again, him and Stefon Diggs, if we're looking at touchdowns, are the most productive receivers in the NFL right now by themselves, a tier on their own. A lot of other elite receivers only have 3, a few more have 2, and so on and so forth. And it just sucks that he's gonna miss 1 or 2 games, because now other receivers are gonna start to catch up and catch passes. And I mean, of course, if it's like Stefon Diggs and Cooper Kupp, that doesn't really matter. Amon-Ra St. Brown, all of these guys are like on his tail with 3 touchdowns. But say like a Drake London or a Garrett Wilson or even a Treylon Burks, if they're able to get back healthy and catch some touchdowns and do some amazing things, it's going to suck that Jahan Dotson will probably move back in the Offensive Rookie of the Year rankings. But I'm hoping he can get back healthy as soon as possible, because I really want him to win that award, man. I really do, for his sake more than anything else. And then moving on, right tackle Samuel Cosmi, our starting right tackle, who honestly should be our starting right guard at this point. I've seen enough to know that I feel like our best offensive line that we can throw out there, even when everybody's fully healthy, is Charles Leno left tackle, I guess Andrew Norwell left guard, maybe even Wes Schweitzer, Chase Roullier center, Samuel Cosmi at right guard, and then Cornelius Lucas probably at right tackle. Maybe Sadiq Charles a left guard, but I've seen enough from Trey Turner, even though he's been banged up, to know that it's time to move on from him being our starter and right. And I've seen enough from Samuel Cosmi getting beat on the outside so bad because of his lack of arm length that, I mean, remember Brandon Sheriff was supposed to be a tackle when we drafted him, and then we realized he's better as a guard, all pro guard. Samuel Cosmi could literally be that exactly. He has all of the athleticism, all of the strength. He's ridiculous in the run game. Samuel Cosmi is one of the best run blocking tackles in the NFL, but when it comes to pass protection, he'd just be far better suited at guard than tackle. So when he gets back healthy, man, we should consider that for real. Especially if Cornelius Lucas, you have plenty of time. You have a game or 2 to show what you can do at tackle to this regime this year. If you play well enough and they're like, man, it's going to be hard to replace this guy, he's been balling at right tackle, I think that would encourage this team to move Samuel Cosmi to right guard even more. So please go out there and ball out. Please protect Carson Wentz with your life. And then questionable, you have linebacker David Mayo, who's pretty much a direct backup to Jamin Davis and Cole Holcomb, and even plays a couple of snaps per game sometimes. So that's kind of important. Somebody's gonna have to step up. I guess it would technically be a Jon Bostic maybe, because again, Milo Eifler is completely out. But if David Mayo can't go, maybe it's Jon Bostic in his place, but he's questionable, so he probably will play. And then tight end Logan Thomas, also with the calf injury, is questionable. And Ron Rivera already let it be known that Cole Turner will play whether Logan Thomas is active or not. So even if Logan Thomas plays, Cole Turner will finally make his rookie debut. I don't know if that means Armani Rogers is inactive that day, because John Bates is already healthy. We know he's playing. We've already had confirmation that Cole Turner's playing. That's 2. Logan Thomas is healthy enough to go. That's 3. Does that mean Armani Rogers goes inactive because that's 4 tight ends and we don't necessarily need that many? That's really interesting. But if Logan Thomas ends up not being active, Armani Rogers is automatically that 3rd tight end, no question. But if Logan Thomas is able to go and Cole Turner's finally making his rookie debut, which I'm really excited about, and I don't know why it's taking this long. I feel like that hamstring injury has not been this bad. I'm not exactly sure why we've had Cole Turner on ice this long, but I'm glad that he'll finally be out there. But just to give you a good idea on whether or not Logan Thomas will play this week, he didn't practice at all this week. I mean, he doesn't even show up status-wise Wednesday and Thursday, and then suddenly didn't practice Friday. So I guess maybe he wasn't even on the injury report Wednesday and Thursday, and maybe he got hurt on Thursday and then ended up not practicing Friday. I'm not exactly sure how that went down, but the only report that we have all week from him is did not practice on Friday. That's it. And even just going back to David Mayo, he was a limited participant all week, but he's good to go. But as far as injury reports and who will play, who was on the injury report, you have Curtis Samuel, who we were worried about. He had some type of illness, but he looks like he's ready to go. He's 100%. Charles Leno was limited in practice Wednesday and Thursday, but fully participated on Friday. He's good to go. You have William Jackson. I'm not even sure if it's a good thing at this point, but he fully participated in practice all week. He's good to go. Daniel Wise, the defensive tackle with an ankle injury, was a full participant in practice all week. He's good to go as well. So right now, Percy, Butler, Samuel Cosmi, Jahan Dotson, and Milo Eifler are out, and then we'll see what David Mayo and Logan Thomas look like on Sunday. Also, Ron Rivera spoke on Tyler Larsen and Brian Robinson. Of course, Brian Robinson is the one that we're most excited about, especially with him recovering from a gunshot incident. He said, quote, "We're fired up," unquote. Ron Rivera says about Robinson's performance this week throughout practices. As long as he feels good tomorrow, I'd expect him to be a factor versus Tennessee. So we'll probably know by Saturday if Brian Robinson's gonna play against the Tennessee Titans. And then Ron Rivera also said it's to be determined whether Brian Robinson plays, but Rivera said that the running back has looked strong. He was sore after Wednesday's practice, but responded well over the next 2 days. And he said that he expects him to be a factor versus Tennessee. So that means maybe he'll play, but he won't get a lot of carries like he normally should if he were just fully healthy. But it's almost safe to assume that Brian Robinson will be active versus the Tennessee Titans, but he probably just won't be like fully active, getting all of the carries, like 3rd and short, 4th and short, guaranteed Brian Robinson like we expect. It'll probably still be a little bit more Antonio Gibson than we expect, but with Brian Robinson healthy, it's going to be less Antonio Gibson than we've seen so far this season. And maybe Brian Robinson's healthy enough to allow us to use Antonio Gibson in the kick return game like we wanted to, but then when Brian Robinson got hurt, we decided, okay, let's just go ahead and scrap that idea. Antonio Gibson is our premier starting running back. Is his show. We don't want him on kickoffs because just in case if he gets hurt, now J.D. McKissick and Jonathan Williams are our starting running backs. And now that Brian Robinson is supposedly back healthy and good enough to potentially play against the Tennessee Titans, maybe Antonio Gibson goes back to being our kickoff returner because he's far more electric than a Dax Milne. Dax Milne is safe and he's gonna catch that fair catch, but anything beyond that, don't expect anything from him. And like I said earlier, Tyler Larsen also could potentially be active and should be active versus the Tennessee Titans, so maybe he's our starting center. Again, with Samuel Cosmi out as of right now, if Tyler Larsen's healthy, your starting offensive line is Charles Leno left tackle, Andrew Norwell left guard, Tyler Larsen as center with Nick Martin as the backup, then your right guard is Sadiq Charles and your right tackle is Cornelius Lucas. And I'm actually pretty excited to see what Sadiq Charles can do because, quiet as kept, Sadiq Charles is still one of our most athletic offensive linemen on the team. I mean, honestly, it's probably Samuel Cosmi and then Sadiq Charles right behind him and then a gap and then everybody else as far as athleticism goes. So the ceiling is limitless. I mean, the potential is there. He just needs to play more and more. And he's looked better every time I've seen him go out there. He looks like a mauler in the run game. He looks really good in the run game, but we still got to work on a few things pass protection wise. But that's the same thing with Samuel Cosmi. Both of those guys are really athletic. When Samuel Cosmi comes back, Sadiq Charles is your left guard. That's our most athletic side of the offensive line. That's our best side to run the ball on because both of those guys are already great against the run. We just got to worry about them against the pass. So in the run game, make sure you run it to the right. But when you're passing it, make sure Carson Wentz, you start to tiptoe to the left a little bit more because you got to worry about that right side a little bit till they get it together. And then moving on to the Tennessee Titans side, it's pretty ugly for them as well because as of right now, it's already been announced that outside linebacker Ola Adeniyi is out. Wide receiver Treylon Burks out. Linebacker Zach Cunningham out. Outside linebacker Bud Dupree out. Linebacker Joe Jones out. And even safety Amani Hooker with a concussion out. So that's really rough for them. Now, granted, injured reserve players don't appear on the injury report. So, of course, you know, we still got Chase Young that's out and Chase Roullier that we've lost for probably the entire season and guys like that. But right now, their injury report looks really bad. This is one of the more hurt teams that we're going to end up playing this season. Detroit Lions were pretty banged up. The Titans are even more banged up. But that didn't really help us against the Lions at all. So who knows if it factors against the Tennessee Titans. But they're missing a lot of key players. Even though Treylon Burks has not been Jahan Dotson at all, that's still technically their best playmaking receiver. Just give him the ball, he'll make something out of it out of nothing. That's still their guy, even though he hasn't been living up to what I expected at this point, because I think he can still end up being a really good receiver. Like, not Deebo Samuel, of course, because there's just 1-and-1, but a Deebo Samuel-like player eventually, just a nerf version. And not having him sucks, first of all, just because of his development. The more he plays, the better he'll get. But then they're also missing their edge rushers. They're missing linebackers that can cover. And they're missing one of their starting safeties. I mean, that's rough, man. That's really, really rough. Remember how hurt our defense was until Cameron Curl came back? Now, granted, Cameron Curl is better than Amani Hooker in my opinion, but that's still rough. Now, granted, they still have Kevin Byard, really good safety, one of the better safeties in the NFL for sure. But losing Amani Hooker does hurt them for sure. And if there was a chance for us to bounce back and get this offense looking like it did the second half of against the Detroit Lions and the first and fourth quarters against the Jaguars, this would be the time. But man, get well soon to everybody, including the Tennessee Titan players. I don't wish injuries on anybody, so get well soon Commanders players, get well soon Titan players, and I'm just hoping we go out there and have a good game. And of course I'm rooting for us to win, but man, at the end of the day, it's football, it's supposed to be fun, so I want to see everybody healthy, man, for sure. But yeah, man, that's the end of this video. Please get in the comment section, let me know how you feel about everything discussed in this video. Please leave a like on this video if you liked it, if you learned anything. Definitely get in the comment section, let me know how you feel about this big injury update for both sides. Us not having Jahan Dotson, them not having Treylon Burks, us not having Samuel Cosmi, them not having a lot of players, man. It's really ugly on both sides. And of course, man, I appreciate all of the support, man. Shouts out to all of my sponsors, especially my Pro Bowl sponsors whose name you see scrolling on the screen right now. I'm gonna catch y'all later. I'm out.